Greetings, I'm Mzansi and welcome to the premiere episode of Mzansi. This show tackles the pressing issues facing our country by interviewing influential newsmakers, disruptors, figures of interest. We challenge them with tough, thought-provoking questions. Today we are joined by Mr. Vuyo Zungula, the president of the African Transformation Movement. Stay tuned.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having us.
Yes. Look, there's been developments with the progressive forces. I mean, we had the MK organizer, national organizer, Vuyo speaking about how he would like that the so-called smaller parties join MK party to try and topple the ANC and the coalition, or maybe the GNU. Is it something that you guys are considering?
A person who speaks for a party will always want to propel his own party, make his own party grow. So it's natural for anyone to promote his own party. However, in the Progressive Caucus, we've got 5 different parties, and those 5 different parties have maintained their identity, and there is no talks of collapsing any party to join one party or the other. As it stands now, the discussions now is about how collectively and individually those parties can work together to push for accountability in Parliament, and secondly, to put forward motions that will actually resolve some of the problems, because it's not enough to just highlight the problems or just hold the executive accountable, but Parliament in its own form needs to have mechanisms whereby we put through proposals. So that is what we are doing as the parties in the Progressive Caucus.
Yes. And if speaking about the Progressive Caucus, I mean, we know that obviously the national organizer of MK, Vuyo jumped from EFF to go to the MK party. If then you look at that, there's been a rupture of relationship between the leadership of the EFF and Vuyo. Has it not created a not so good working relationship in the Progressive Party, and how have you tried to handle this in the Progressive parties?
People are changing parties left, right, and center. It's not something new, and it is not something that will stop with the move Floyd to MK. However, what is important for us to remember is that what we are dealing with now is much bigger than individuals who will change parties. Again, it is much bigger than the different political parties who are contesting in the political space. It is about the well-being of of our people in our country who are marginalized, who are still shackled in poverty. So it is that message we must always emphasize, to say it is not about us, it is not about our parties, but it is about our country and the well-being of the future generations. Therefore, we must never allow anything to sidetrack us from our mission, which is to make sure that indeed we've got a true democracy, number one, and a true freedom, whereby the freedom that we are going to say we are in does indeed translate into good quality of life for our citizens. So that is our focus as all of these parties in the Progressive Caucus.
Yes. I mean, in the last administration, there was a serious issue that you had raised with the Pala thing, which we saw most people then started to familiarize themselves with ATM, and people saw you as this person that was taking charge of that Pala thing that was facing the president.
Firstly, there is a standing report that has not been set aside that states that Mr. Ramaphosa may have committed serious wrongdoing. Therefore, would be betraying our oath of office as MPs if we're to continue as if life is normal. Whereas there's a president that has been found by a credible institution of a former Chief Justice and a judge and another advocate that the president has committed serious wrongdoing on the side of the Constitution. Therefore, we are not going to rest up until he's held accountable, because we cannot allow a president with so much powers to appoint judges, to appoint national police commissioners, to go on, whereas he's a person that violates the Constitution. We are going to hold him accountable starting from tonight.
Do you think this boosted your election strategy when you went to people to go there to say, look, we are able to hold people to account in Parliament, trust us? And what do you think that what do you think is the factor that maybe you didn't do so well than when you went to the elections in 2019?
If we're to talk about the elections of 2024, we have gone to court seeking to challenge those elections, primarily because they do not make any form of sense in the context that you can't have a case in our country, which is something that is accepted, whereas we should not accept it. If you as Ulunga, you go and vote, even if the party agent of the party you vote for is not in a certain voting station, you need to have the faith that the presiding officer is independent and independent enough to count all votes, whether there is a party agent for party A or party B. But in the context of our country, something that has been normalized, it is that if you vote for a party, if that party does not have a party agent in a certain voting station, then it means those votes are going to be discarded. So it means we have accepted the violation, which is the right to vote, because the right to vote right, which is there in our constitution, does not imply that you must just go there and make a mark. That mark must actually be counted. When the votes are tallied by the IEC system, they must count all of the votes, whether there was a party agent from your party or there was no party agent. We have so many people that came out to us to say, I voted in a certain voting station, but when I'm looking at the results of the particular voting station, ATM has got 0. And the person will ask, but how? Because I voted there. So it is not even a case whereby we as the ATM are saying all of these things. So we want as the ATM to hold the IEC as well accountable, so that we know that we've got credible elections. And it cannot be when you are going to have people that are saying, but the elections are free, they are credible. But at the same time, they are going to say, but we've got a corrupt government. There's no way the government can be corrupt, or there could be corruption in the public sector. But the mechanism that places the party into power, we say no, that mechanism, which is the elections or the IEC, is perfect. So that is what we were trying to achieve. So if you look at the ATM, 2019, no one knew the ATM, no one knew Vuyo Zungula. Now, 5 years later, we have advocated for changes in our country, put through proposals. We were the forefront as the ATM of pushing for Put South Africans First in Parliament and ensuring that the township economy is restored to citizens, and how South African citizens need to be the primary beneficiaries of the economy, meaning they must be first preference when it comes to employment opportunities. We also dealt with the question of holding the executive accountable. Therefore, in 5 years, a lot of people knew of ATM, Vuyo Zungula, what we stand for, and our contributions in Parliament. Therefore, it cannot be that 5 years later, ATM is going to get lesser votes than 2019, because in 2019, no one knew who I was. 2019, no one even knew what we are standing for. And between 2019 and 2024, we made solid relations with different institutions, churches, Amakosi, different organizations that not only pronounce but they're going to vote for us, but even their members actively campaign for us. So it cannot be that now you would think about 2019 when we did not have such relations, and versus 2024 when we had those relations, but when it comes to the votes, we have reduced the votes that ATM got were reduced. So that is, amongst others, the reasons why we want to push for accountability when it comes to the IEC, and to put an end to this misnomer that has been normalized to Koba. If you vote and the party agent of your party is not in that voting station, your vote has been discarded. Because it is one of the reasons why other people do not vote, because they will tell you, why should we vote? Because vote, or the very same party is going to win. So it makes our democracy to be a mockery if majority of the citizens are discouraged from voting because of their lack trust and faith in the electoral system, when they are supposed to be independently counting the votes, but bona, they will not do what they are appointed to do.
If you look at the MK party, they were also saying that there should be a recount or revote, or also saying the elections were not credible. but they withdrew. Do you then believe that now that you are actually alone, you still stand a good chance in court to win that battle?
Malawi a few years ago had a similar issue. They went to court and the court said there must be a revote. So a revote or a re-election, it is not something new. We want to send a message to say we are going to stand for the truth, even if ATM ime yodwa, because what is important is that even the next coming elections, we want changes. And then the type of changes that we want, number one, if you vote as a citizen in our country, whether the party agent of the party you are voting for is in that voting station or not, but you must have faith that the presiding officer, who is supposed to be independent, must count all votes regardless. And the people that are tallying those votes into the IEC dashboard, there must not be a case whereby what is captured on the result slip is different from what is captured on the system. And there must not be a case whereby when the party agents are signing for the result slip, once they leave, those result slips are altered and the results are manufactured.
You also campaigned on illegal immigration. You were very strong to say, look, you do not want illegal immigrants, and you've been calling for police to actually act on this thing. How far is that? Is that something that the party still believes and still wants to push?
Ungathi xa ungena edolophini ihardware yasePakistan, impahla ithengiswa ngabantu basePakistan, iiphones zilungiswa ngabantu basePakistan, thina sihleli nje. Sifuna kwanto ezisimali epokothini ibe zezandleni zabantu base-South Africa. Umuntu asuke ngapha ePakistan azosithengisela ii-chips. Asikwazi thina uthatha imali, uthatha i-R2 ithi nansi i-chips. Kutheni kuzodinga ukuba umuntu avele kwelinye icontinent azokwenza into esikwazi uyenza? Sifuna apho uqinisekisa uba i-economy yethu isezandleni zethu. Kuba bahlali asinalo ubango kwi-economy yaseChina. Awunayo ubango kwi-economy yasePakistan. Inye xa ilizwe apho unebango lwe-economy yalo yi-South Africa.
We need to deal with issues systematically. Instead of having a hype or a political campaign that is all about hype, going to a company and saying show me the papers of the people that are working there. We want the Department of Labor to be fully empowered to take care of the companies who are employing illegal immigrants, because when you deal with the company, you are dealing with the problem instead of dealing with the person that has been employed. Because if you deal with that one person that has been employed, that one person can easily go back to their respective country. The employer will employ someone else. So that is why I sit on the Committee of Employment and Labor. And some of the systematic things that we are pushing also in Parliament is a strengthening of the Department of Home Affairs. You will recall that we've been very vocal pushing the Department of Home Affairs when it comes to, for example, the revoking of citizenship of Philip Craig, who is a British national who holds a dual citizenship in South Africa, who wants to further divide South Africa by having a Cape independence. So because we are not going to win the war of illegal immigration if we focus on one or two individuals. But once we build state capacity and we get the departments to work and to work correctly, then we are going to be systematic in our approach and we are going to systematically deal with this problem. So we are very much pro law and order in our country, because we are saying this is what the law says, and you as a department, whether a small business, Department of Home Affairs or Employment or the police, do what is required by the law. Do not politicize this thing, because if you as Ulunga go to another country without papers and you jump the border, you don't see political parties making noise, because they trust to go by the law enforcement authorities of those countries are going to stick to the law. In our country, the laws are there, but the problem is that we do not have an appetite of enforcing what the law is saying. So that is why, Tina, we want the people that are responsible to enforce the law, which is these departments, to do what is required by the law.
I remember in one of your campaigns, I think it was in Jamlani, during the elections, where you spoke about that police should kill criminals and they shouldn't be soft on criminals, and you feel that the police have been disarmed. How do you still believe in that? And there's been a lot of commentators, especially with what's happening in KZN, that the KZN police have become low unto themselves. Is what's happening in KZN something that you would like to see happen in the entire country?
Lungas, let me tell you this. If a criminal were to point a gun at me and I'm a police officer, I would not hesitate. I would shoot that criminal, and not shoot them that maybe to scare them. I would shoot for them to die. Because when a criminal points a gun at you, they are not just playing. They are not just trying to scare you. They want to eliminate you. So we can't be in a reckless state where we want police officers to lose their lives at the hands of criminals who are heartless. Just recently now, there were criminals who killed a defenseless woman in KZN, and apparently the baby, one of the children of this woman, was hiding behind a car. They ran over that defenseless baby. So that is the life we are living at the hands of cruel and heartless criminals. So we as Tina, the ATM, we are not saying, if you see a criminal as a policeman, just shoot that criminal. But what we are saying, if that criminal points a gun at you, do not even wait for that criminal to shoot you. Because what if he shoots you and you die? You won't be able to defend yourself before that criminal. So that is what we are saying as the ATM. And we are equally saying the work that General Mkwanas is doing, it is marvelous. And we are applauding him. And if you check the citizens themselves, no one is crying about General Mkwanas. But these so-called righteous political commentators or experts who would never put themselves in the front line of such police operations want to be theoretical when it comes to the issue of dealing with crime. Whereas if you are a policeman, your life is continuously under threat. Look, every year we hear about how many policemen are losing their lives trying to protect me and you, law-abiding citizens. So why the state should not give capacity to our policemen? Ukuba, they must defend themselves in their job of defending us as law-abiding citizens.
You campaign really rigorously here in Gauteng. We've seen now that ANC and Action SA are trying to take over these municipalities, especially in Joburg. We saw one of your MMCs losing their position in MMC Lubabalo Makwenchu. And then now there's talks that they want to also take over in Tshwane, where you actually have a speaker there. Is this a decision that you are accepting, or do you still have faith in that coalition? I mean, I know it was a coalition of the minority parties, the EFF and the ANC, but now it looks like Action SA is also coming through. Are you still having faith in this coalition?
We were never part of a coalition with any of those parties. It was a working arrangement, and Councillor Magwenchu was given a responsibility as an MMC in Johannesburg. Councillor Nzwanana in Tshwane has got equal responsibility. Councillor Tupane in Mogale Seat was given a responsibility. So if the parties that have the numbers want to alter those working arrangements for whatever reasons, by the way, we as the ATM, we're not going to stand in front of their way. We're going to continue doing the work, whether we have speakers or we have mayors or we've got ordinary councillors. We are going to independently fulfill our obligations, which is to do our work as councillors as mandated by the citizens of the respective municipalities.
Okay. Don't you think, in a way, because now you look at the ANC at the time, we're in a bit of a vulnerable position, and now obviously they are in a GNU where nationally they are comfortable, that now they do not feel like they still need you, the minority parties?
No, not at all. Look, the GNU arrangement, as you know, nationally, it is an arrangement that is not about serving the people. It is a compromise arrangement that is all about securing power for the ANC and the other parties that wanted to taste power. So we as the ATM are very clear to say whether there's GNU or there's no GNU, if we have, as a party, we've got representation, whether it is in parliament, provincial legislature or municipalities, we have an obligation to the citizens, and we must continuously fulfill those obligations by doing the work that we've been elected to do, holding the executive accountable, but most importantly, put forward solutions. Because if you're to listen to all of our contributions, whether it is in parliament or provincial legislatures, if there's one defining feature that we'll get from all of the ATM representatives, it is not just to recite what the problems are, but rather it is to offer solutions. That is why we've written countless times to the departments offering solutions to whatever problems that we face in our country. And that role, we are going to keep on doing it, regardless of the changes in the working arrangements in terms of power dynamics in either nationally or in the municipalities.
Do you now feel, obviously, there was a former party leader, I think it was in the NEC of your party in Mzansi. I mean, when ATM started in 2019, there were talks that it was a Gupta party. It was formed by the former Secretary General of ANC in Ismakhashule with the help of the former President Zuma. Do you think you have rid yourself of the allegations that you were a Gupta party, which was meant to disturb the ANC?
It is not about us getting rid of ourselves of that particular narrative, but the question would be, why does the media continue with that narrative? Whereas there's a report that was done by the former speaker, Dr. Frin Jinwala and Mokhale Motlante from the ANC, which investigated whether it was President Zuma, Ismakhashule, whether they were involved in the forming or operations of any political party. And that report clearly exonerated ATM. ATM is not in any way affiliated or associated with those former leaders of the ANC. However, the media continues that narrative. So it is a case of, it's not a case of us as the ATM getting rid of that particular perception or narrative, but rather the question that we need to ask ourselves, what role is the media playing in terms of informing society? Is it educational or informative? Or is it contributing towards creating particular narratives? Narratives in the sense that when this narrative was there beginning of 2019 when we were campaigning, everyone was writing about it, speaking about it. But when there's a report that is exonerating us, and a report that was done by a reputable former Speaker of Parliament, we do not see the same appetite when it comes to reporting. And when there was also a report that was allegation, in fact, information that was out in the public, the OSG of the ANC Mbalula actually paid some people to spread some of these narratives against ATM in order to destabilize ATM. People are not, the media is not saying, okay, hold on a minute, what role did the ANC play in terms of creating a false narrative against ATM so that people out there are discouraged from voting or associating with the ATM? And what the ANC has been doing with all of the parties, it is not something new. ANC has always had a role in terms of the destruction of opposition parties. So what the media is not doing, it is questioning that. Perhaps it helps the media or some people in the media that there are some narratives against parties. And that is why, for example, they would not correctly and factually report about such reports.
Are you, in what you've just said, are you accusing the ANC Secretary General in Mbalula that he paid people to I don't know, maybe to write or maybe to say things about the party? What is it that you are saying? But maybe if I just get that correct.
It's not an accusation. It is a voice recording that was, Mr. Mbalula was in that voice recording saying, Okuba, they are working with some people in the ATM with the sole purpose of creating all of these narratives. Even there's a media publication that actually wrote about that particular, that wrote about what Mr. Mbalula said from 2019, and it is, I think the caption of that story was the plot to kill ATM, Mbalula's plot to kill ATM. So it's not something new, it's not something that is coming from me, but it is based from an investigative journalist that found Ukoba Mbalula, amongst different leaders of the ANC, actually paid people in the ATM to spread rumors in order to destabilize the growth of ATM.
The president obviously has signed the Bella bill. Firstly, where do you stand with that bill?
The Bella bill has got clauses or some parts of it which are progressive. Also, some parts of it maybe other people would feel uncomfortable with when it comes to trying to deal with some of the issues in the educational sector. But our view for us as the ATM is that there is progress, because we are not going to miraculously deal with all of the issues in the public sector in one go. There needs to be gradual development, and this bill is a step towards achieving that, even though there may be some reservations about some of the clauses in that particular bill.
And maybe lastly, are you going to go ahead and pursuing this Phala thing, despite the reports that have been done by other institutions, by the Public Protector and the Reserve Bank? Are you still going to be pursuing this Phala matter?
We are in court challenging the report of the Public Protector, because the manner in which he approached that particular investigation, in our view, it was a shoddy work, because you can't have a case whereby you've got a key witness, which is a person who supposedly opened that farm and received the money, and you do not have an interview. You rely on a written statement or an affidavit done by this person, and only to find that this the person who did the affidavit for that Mr. Ndlovu is the very same person who did the affidavit for the farm manager, as well as another person that is linked. So you've got one law firm that did 3 affidavits. That on its own is showing that one law firm would want to make sure the stories align. But as a public protector, you are supposed to have at least an oral interview, because in an oral interview, you are able to pick up if there are issues. That is the first issue. The second issue is the definition of paid work. It can't be that the understanding of paid work means you need to be physically in a certain place, because currently you've got people that are physically in South Africa but working for firms that are in America or Europe. Those people are paying taxes in our country, they are employed. Now the public protector confines the definition of paid work to you must be physically in a certain area, whereas paid work also includes that once you put mental effort into any income generating activity, that is paid work in our understanding. And this is also agreed to by the independent panel report that was done by the former Chief Justice. So which clearly shows that the public protector did not really approach this report in a correct manner. The second issue is that we are also joined the EFF case by seeking to review the decision of the National Assembly in December 2022, when it voted not to pursue the Phala matter in Parliament. We want to remind people that Section 42(3) of the Constitution is very clear that the duty of the National Assembly is to scrutinize all executive action. Now, what transpired there is that we wrote to the Speaker and we said the rules of Parliament are saying if you want to have an impeachment process, there must be an independent panel to do a report that will detail whether there is any reason to believe that there may be wrongdoing. Now, that independent panel that was led by the former Chief Justice came with a clear report that is saying there may be wrongdoing here. Now, it cannot be that there is a prima facie evidence of wrongdoing and you as Parliament, you do not do what you are elected to do or what you are obligated to do in accordance to Section 42(3) of the Constitution by having a committee that was going to investigate. Remember, the impeachment committee was not said ukuba it will find the president guilty. It was to say, let us have a committee that will investigate whether there is wrongdoing or there's no wrongdoing, which is to scrutinize. But what Parliament did in that December 2022 was to vote against any investigation or any scrutiny. And we believe as the ATM that is a violation of Section 42(3) of the Constitution.
Before I let you go, Vuyo, there's been talks that when are you guys holding a conference? When is the ATM going to conference? Are you in fear that there's someone that might challenge you and win there? Why have you not held a conference?
No, we're not in fear of anything. We had a policy conference last year. We also had a youth conference last year. The year before, at a women's conference. When you are building, you must not rush, because you may want to elect new leaders or have a change in leadership. But the culture of our politics in our country, it is that people use money. People are not obsessed about the growth of the party. They just want to ascend into leadership positions, even if it means it is to the detriment of the party. So the party, it's not me, the president, that will make a decision as to when are we going to go into conference. But it is the structures of the ATM that will make that determination. So it is not a case whereby I'm the one who has a final say, because I'm part of a collective.
Yeah. So we're not going to be seeing a conference anytime soon where we are going to be challenged?
No. The conference will be there. The time, ukuba when is it? We all don't know. But what I can assure you, ukuba the ATM will go to conference. And remember, the ATM has got a council of elders. The council of elders comprises of elders who are the ones who guide the party to make sure that we don't go astray. It is also those elders who sit down and say, these are the people that are best suited to take the party forward. So we don't have those elections whereby you've got slates, you've got people that are going to, you are going to give money to vote for. We don't have such things, Tina, as a party. So that is why, Tina, as a party, we are not rushing into entering such arrangements, knowing over in other parties they've led to the downfall or friction in those parties. What is important is that let us build at our own time, at our own space, and let us not want to succumb to this idea of we need to be like other parties. For example, look at the ruling party. Every time there's a conference, there's a fracture, there's divisions, it becomes weaker. Why? Because the essence of their contestations when it comes to leadership positions, it is all about buying people, making sure those people are in leadership positions to the detriment of having quality leaders that would move the party forward. So Tina asizi when it comes to that.
That was Mr. Vuyo Zungula, president of the ATM. Thank you for joining us. Be sure to catch the next episode of Mzansi Lens on Mdntv's YouTube channel. I'm Mzansi. Until next time, cheers.